Afternoon, Cherries fans, and welcome to the latest opposition preview show here at Up the Cherries in all departments. Now, before I welcome on my special guest, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Bank. To find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, after our defeat against Arsenal, where we lost 3-0, and our Manchester City defeat, where we lost 4-0, and there was another game in between, wasn't there? I've tried to forget that one. We take on a Wolves side who are winless in the last 11 games under Bruno Lage. In fact, Wolves remain below us at the moment. To preview this game, it is a pleasure to welcome on from the Talking Wolves YouTube channel, Dave Azzopardi. Afternoon, Dave. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Thank you for having me on.
Not a problem at all. Of course, you yesterday got a draw against Newcastle. Should have really taken all 3 points, though, shouldn't you?
Yeah, we had the lead for so long during the game as well, and it sort of almost their goal almost came off our own mistake. It was a poor clearance, and it was a great finish from obviously Sir Maximin of Newcastle. But yeah, really disappointing that we didn't get all 3 points. And 4 games so far this season without a win. So we're really, we've got a couple of games coming up against yourselves and Southampton, which I think a lot of Wolves fans are really hoping that we can find our first win of the season from.
Of course, let's get the elephant out of the room straight away. The trip to Liverpool for us, it started with a lot of optimism. I actually thought, could we actually do something here? Could we actually get a decent result? I went for 2-1, probably speaking from the heart rather than the head. Take nothing away from Liverpool. On playing like they did on Saturday, they would have beaten anybody in the world.
Mm-hmm.
However, we made it way too easy for them. What did you, and is this the best time to play Bournemouth, or is it a case that however we're going to do it, I don't know, but do you expect to see a bit of a reaction?
I think there'll definitely be a reaction, and that's why we're not a free scoring side ourselves. For the last 2 seasons, we've averaged less than a goal a game, and then when you see Bournemouth come off the back of such a heavy defeat like that, I think you're in sort of 2 minds. You think, right, is their morale going to be rock bottom, and are we going to go to Bournemouth and upset it even more, or are they going to have a huge reaction and make lives really difficult for us? So I would be surprised if Wolves go there and score 3 or 4 goals, because we're just not doing that at the moment. But I know Scott Parker, with him as a manager, and we've seen him and his mentality, I'm sure he's going to want to try and correct that some way. I think I said to you just before we kicked off, you were given a really tough start to the season. Kicked off brilliantly, but then sort of crashed back down to Premier League reality with some of the games that you'd had. So I think Bournemouth fans will be sort of looking at this fixture and thinking, not necessarily that you're going to go and beat Wolves, but thinking, right, we have definitely got a chance, and hopefully Scott Parker gets some sort of reaction out of the team.
A lot of our fans are saying this is where our season really starts now.
Yeah.
So we beat Villa at home, of course. That was a great performance. And that's what makes the past three so confusing. So, of course, 4-0 up at Man City. To be fair, we didn't play badly that day. We didn't play badly at all. They just had they just oozed class across the
Yeah.
pitch. Arsenal, we made it easy for them for the first half an hour, went 2-0 down in the first 10 minutes. And then, of course, on Saturday, it only took Liverpool 6 minutes. And being 5-0 down at half time, we could tell we was in quite a bit of bother. We didn't imagine 9. But what's your views on Scott Parker? Because he has come out and he said that he doesn't feel that, he's got the personnel. He feels that they're going to struggle and there could be more defeats like that. Surely that's sending out the wrong message to players. Or is that something that maybe Wolves will jump on and a little bit of a false flag, really?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we've seen a lot more in the modern game where managers are being honest, and sometimes it is possibly in that case a little bit too honest. Because yes, you want to send a message to your owners or the board, but at the same time, you've got to think about the well-being and morale and everything of your own players. Because if you've got your own head coach saying that, yeah, we probably we might have a few more heavy defeats, then does that sound like your manager actually trusts you? Is it, so yeah, I mean, I looked at your transfers before we started off. I think you would have probably expected a few more through the door, a few more of sort of top level quality, if I'm being completely honest. But to me, that's probably, although it's not intended to make that sound like a dig at the squad, I think it is a bit more of a message to the board saying, look, if you don't give me a bit of money from this last week of the window, we might see this a little bit more. But I think he's just putting more pressure on himself by saying stuff like that, to be honest. So yeah, it's I think there will be a reaction though on Wednesday from Bournemouth. But I think Wolves will want to react as well after the draw against Newcastle on Sunday.
And that's why I thought when Newcastle equalised, I thought that could be a little bit bad news for us. Even though, yes, Wolves would have gone into this game with a win, of course, us being the home team coming off the back of a big defeat, if Wolves had won that, maybe there would have been less pressure on Bruno Lage, and it would have been a case of, right, okay, let's go out of them. But I don't know how much you saw of the game against Liverpool and what we did, but we didn't press them at all. There was nobody running off the channels as well, off Kiefer Moore. Kiefer Moore is a slow forward. He's very good in the air when it's one-on-one. He can score. He will 9 times out of 10 score and put it past the goalkeeper. But it was just the whole manner of the defeat which was disappointing for me. And do you expect that Wolves will think, right, okay, they're off the back of this 9-0 defeat. We're just going to get straight in their faces, put them straight away under pressure, and hopefully they'll crumble like they did up at Liverpool.
Yeah, and I will be intrigued to see how Bruno Lage lines us up, because for the last 2 or 3 games we've seen us play with a 4-3-3, like a flat midfield three, and 3 fantastic midfielders, but not necessarily attacking midfielders. And we played quite a lot in pre-season with like a 4-2-3-1, so almost like an extra forward. I would be interested to see if Bruno Lage goes to that formation, just to almost add an extra forward, add somebody else that can press a lot higher and put Bournemouth under a lot of pressure quite early on. But yeah, there's going to be elements of that game against Liverpool that Wolves are going to be looking at and thinking, right, that we could do the same thing, or we could, trouble Bournemouth in the same way. I thought, with how quick Liverpool were breaking, how quick they are in possession, at times the Bournemouth defensive positioning was just all over the place. They couldn't organise. And it's up to Wolves to try and do that. Sometimes we have good possession. We have, a good amount of possession on the ball, but a little bit slow in sort of the transitions. I think it's up to us on Wednesday to try and, we've got a lot of pressure on us, and it's been the same probably for the last 12 months. We're just waiting for something to click, and hopefully the goals will just start flowing, and it's just not happened yet. And it'll be interesting to see how we react on Wednesday, and if we can actually put the ball in the back of the net for a change.
Of course, the Wolves side still has loads and loads of quality. I know there was a little bit of dip last season as well, but you look at and so many Portuguese players. Of course, everybody knows Rúben Neves, fantastic player. You got Neto, Semedo. I'm going to miss some out here, really, but but there is real quality in this side. Of course, Jimenez as well. What do you expect, Bruno Lage, and what sort of side do you expect him to put out? Do you think it will be an attacking formation, or do you think that they'll try and control the midfield? Which, let's be honest, that was one of our strengths, and to be fair, that is one of Wolves' strengths as well.
Yeah, I think the last two games we've had in particular, which was against Tottenham and against obviously Newcastle this weekend, I think it would have been interesting on Sunday if Bruno Gomares played for Newcastle to see what that midfield battle would have been like. But that's where we've tried to, I think our best area is the midfield three, if you say Neves, Moutinho, and obviously Matheus Nunes, who joined as well. But in regards to Wednesday, I think Bruno Lage has to go attacking. I think he has to try and go and try and grab some goals. I would like to see a 4-2-3-1. I think the midfield two would probably be Neves and Nunes. Moutinho has come back. He's been good, but he has just come back from a little injury. So I'd assume, he's played already 2 games in the last week. Can he manage another one? I'm not sure. So I think the back four will be similar as well. I think Semedo was phenomenal against Newcastle on Sunday. So probably play him at right back. Bring Ryan Aït-Nouri back in at left back. He's a little bit more attacking as well with Kilman and Collins, Nunes and Neves. And I'd probably say Podence like the number 10, and Guedes and Neto on the wings, and Jimenez up front as well. So Jimenez, it's good to see him back fit, but we really need to see him start getting amongst the score sheet a little bit more.
And of course, Conor Coady left the club, which was a little bit of a surprise for me because he's gone to Everton, who, let's be honest, is a relegation rival. Would you agree?
Yeah. It was a surprise. It came quite quickly, but I think there's still a lot of neutral fans that can't quite understand the move. But for the club and for Conor Coady, it made sense. Ever since Nuno came in sort of 5 years ago, he adopted this back five formation. So we saw 3 centre backs. And Conor Coady had been at the club for 7 years. He played as a central midfielder, he played as a right back, and when Nuno came in, he almost saw him as a perfect sweeper. And he's played there ever since. And I don't think he, other than injury or suspension, he'd never been dropped from a Wolves team, apart from the first game of the season against Leeds, where Bruno Lage had obviously switched to a back four. We saw a back four during pre-season. He'd signed Nathan Collins, and I think in a back four, you need some, bigger, more commanding centre backs, and Conor Coady just isn't that. And with the World Cup coming up, he just wanted minutes. So the club have got respect for him. He's got obviously respect for the club, and I think it was probably the right decision just to let him go. And he's gone to Conor Coady, which is to Everton, which is a bit of a surprise, seeing as he's a Liverpool boy. But yeah, I'm not sure if we'll ever see him back at Wolves, or at least in a Wolves shirt. But he's been a phenomenal captain for the club, so it's probably the right move for both parties, really.
And of course, Rúben Neves scored against Newcastle as well. He's looking like he's getting back to his best.
Yeah, and he's got the captain's armband now as well, and he's putting in some proper captain's performances. I think the last 2 weeks, Tottenham, yesterday against Newcastle, I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. But we just need him to sign a new contract now. He's out of contract at the end of next season. But we've seen it in particular with Adama Traore, where he sort of let his contract run down. He's out of contract at the end of this year. That's why we'd sold Morgan Gibbs-White as well, because, he was refusing to sign a new deal. So I'm hoping this window slams shut. He's got the armband and thinks, let's give them another couple of years, and hopefully we get a new contract signed in the next week or so.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, defensively, we are a little bit all over the place, to be put nicely. Of course, Lloyd Kelly was injured for the trip to Liverpool. We had Chris Metham and Senesi at the back, alongside John Zamora and, of course, Adam Smith. Those two, Metham and Senesi, don't look like they really are working that well together. And Senesi, of course, a new signing from Feyenoord. I'm guessing that Neves is going to really give them a tough time at that back. And, who else are they going to have to keep quiet in the Wolves side?
Well, I think, going forward, we've got some really talented players, and it's just, like I said, it's just almost waiting for it to click. And it's almost like they're lacking confidence in front of goal. We're almost trying to walk it in at times. But obviously, we're going to have Neto in there, running at the Guedes. We had a couple of good counter attacks yesterday. Núñez had led those as well. So going forward, we've got some real quality. And I think any defence in the Premier League we can cause problems for. But it's just waiting for that final ball or final end product to be there. So, yeah, I think the key men really obviously Neves, I think, is going to run the show. But then if we're going with the attacking lineup, I think Guedes, Podence, Neto, they all offer their own threats in different ways.
Of course, we might end up playing our own Neto in goal. And, of course, Mark Travers, after conceding 9 against Liverpool. I was going to say 6. I was getting a bit hopeful there. I'm trying to phase it out of my mind, but yeah, we've got to be honest. Conceding 9, his confidence has taken a bit of a battering, and I think you could see that towards the end of the game. The 7th goal in particular, I think it was the 7th goal. There was too many, but the 7th goal in particular just didn't seem to have any confidence at all. But Neto, of course, a former Barcelona goalkeeper. Surely this is the right time for him to come in and stake his claim.
Yeah, you would say so. And again, when I said earlier, I looked at the transfers. I thought I think it's a good sign. He's a good goalkeeper. He sort of came out of the blue. I don't know when he was signing. A few Wolves fans were saying, "Hold on, Bournemouth signing Neto." I was like, "Not that Neto, don't worry." But yeah, it's I think now it's probably the right time to bring him in. I know Fulham have had a similar sort of thing with Leno and their other goalkeeper, sort of almost trying to find the right time to actually bring the goalkeeper in. But yeah, unfortunately for Travers, I think when you concede 9 goals, I think it's probably time for the new goalkeeper to come in for the next game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And I think probably he wants to have a little bit of a break after that as well.
Yeah.
Just get his confidence back up, get back into training, and he is a good goalkeeper. It's just a shame what happened on Saturday happened. And like I say, Liverpool on their day, playing like that would have beaten anybody, but we made it even easier for them, to be fair. Solanke did come off the bench against Liverpool, though, and he showed some glimpses of promise, as much glimpses of promise you can have in a 9-0 defeat. But, he should be back for the Wolves game. He did look like he limped off a little bit, but how worried would you be with him taking our front line, considering he's a lot quicker than Kiefer Moore? He does bring the ball back, gets more players involved, and I think maybe that's something that we've been missing, especially in our midfield, that other players haven't been able to get involved.
Yeah, I think to be fair, ever since we switched to the back 4, I think one of our worries as Wolves fans was going to be, because we played a back 5 for so long, were we going to see some teething problems and whatnot? And defensively, we've been, pretty sound, thankfully. But there are a couple of times where, you can get these quicker forwards and they can, I'm not saying Kilman and Collins are blessed with pace. So I think, there is the opportunity that he might be able to get in behind and so on. Kiefer Moore would be an interesting one as well if he did play. We were linked with him quite heavily before he went to Bournemouth as well. And again, we played against the likes of Chris Wood yesterday, and I thought, they dealt with him quite well. And I'd say Chris Wood and Kiefer Moore, similar sort of stature and build. So I would be intrigued either way, whichever one of those two players started, how you got on with those up front. I think Wolves, aren't a tall team. So with those set
Mhm.
pieces, throw-ins or corners or free kicks, if you're going to be floating them in towards Kiefer Moore and so on, I think it's going to be interesting to see how we dealt with them. But yeah, either way, it'll be a good battle between your front line and our defence.
Yeah, I think. Well, I hope so. I hope so, considering what we've come off the back of. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure it'll be a lot closer game. With regards to Wolves' next game, so you got, of course, ourselves, Southampton, and then you've got a similar sort of run, with the big six. Do you think if Bruno Lage doesn't get 3 points on the board against us or that lot down the road, um, do you think that his time might be up at Wolves?
um, I don't. I think there'll be a lot of fans, a lot of discontent in the fan base if that's the case. But then you've gone 6 games in a new season without a win, and if you include this games from last season as well, that would mean he's gone. If he doesn't win the next 13 games without a win,
Mhm.
I don't think any manager in world football would be, would be safe with those numbers. So I'm not sure if he gets sacked, on the spot next weekend, but I think there's a hell of a lot of pressure on him going into that tough running, and there's no guarantee that he's going to get wins out of those games. I think, like I said to you before we started, I think we've got Liverpool in there, we've got Chelsea in there, we've got City in there, so they're going to be extremely tough games for him. So there's a lot of pressure, but I think the board will be almost. I don't know if they'd be kicking themselves because we've spent a lot of money. We've almost spent a lot of money for him to bring in his own tactics and system. So I think
Yeah.
I do agree that needs time, but the performances still aren't quite there at the minute. And, he needs to get a reaction out of this squad sooner rather than later. I've said it for the last 2 weeks on paper, our first 11 and overall squad, including our bench, is probably the best close to the best we've ever had in our common, in our, the current Premier League era. Um, but if you can't get the results to match, then I think he's putting himself under a lot of pressure. So the next 2 games are absolutely huge for him.
And to be fair, when we look at our squad, um, maybe apart from the second season in the Premier League, and the thing with Eddie Howe's side was he brought in a load of misfits, put them all together, and they worked
Yeah.
together. If you look at our squad on paper now, there is a lot of quality. There's probably not the strength in depth that
Hmm.
Wolves have got, but which makes that start and why. I keep referring back to this. The Villa game was brilliant, but it was the manner of the last 2 defeats. Let's forget
Yeah.
Man City, but the manner of the last 2 defeats, which is most disappointing. And I'm hoping, Well, would you say Bruno Lage is still probably ahead of Scott Parker in the sack race? I'm guessing Frank Lampard might be top of the list at the moment, but
Yeah. Someone had sent me the odds, I think, yesterday, and Bruno Lage was still like 20-1, which I think
mm,
the net light is in the next manager to be sacked, which I thought was, quite surprising. But I don't know. I think Bruno Lage, with the amount of money he spent and so on, is probably under that little bit more pressure. But at the same time, like you said earlier, losing 9-0 is, never going to help your
yeah,
job security, I don't think. But you guys have been given a really tough start.
mhm,
We've had a couple of tough teams, but we've also played Fulham and Leeds, who, I would expect, us to be getting better results against, really. So, yeah, I think things could change very quickly. And with the amount of Premier League games we've got going on, midweek fixtures and so on, if we were having this conversation this time next week, I'd be quite intrigued to see what would be different.
yeah, definitely. Um, let's throw this out there. Who at the moment do you think are the three that look most likely to go down? And honestly, if you feel it's Bournemouth, be perfectly
Yeah.
honest. Don't worry.
Um, yeah. Well, I said at the start, see, if I'm honest, I think Bournemouth are going to struggle.
Mhm.
Um, it's interesting at the moment because all the teams that are sort of down there are probably teams you wouldn't be expecting to be down there. Obviously, you've got ourselves, Leicester, West Ham. Um, I'd probably say, I think, yeah, Bournemouth, unfortunately. I think Everton are going. Again, I don't. I think Everton have probably got too much to go down. I'm not. Who else is down there at the minute? West Ham, Bournemouth. I think. I think it could be yourselves. I think Villa are struggling at the minute as well.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to pinpoint another couple of teams, though, if I'm completely honest at the minute. I'd struggle to give you 3 if I'm honest, just looking at it now. But I think, yeah, yourselves, let's say Villa, and I'd love Forest to go down as well, if I'm honest. So I'll just say Forest.
Yeah, after all the money they've spent,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
let's be honest, they were always sarcastic. So if we're going down, well, hopefully we'll go down fighting. But
Yeah.
Forest can come with us. Although
Yeah.
saying that, Southampton would be quite nice to.
Yeah, I think it's just hard to tell at the minute. I'm just looking at it. You got Leeds that are up there. I think they could certainly come crashing down sooner rather than later. But there's still a long way to go.
There is, yeah, there is, and hopefully we can get things right with or without Scott Parker. Right, let's put you on the spot. How do you reckon it's going to go on Wednesday, all things considering?
I think it would be typical Wolves to not win this game. So I'm going to go. My head is saying a 1-1 draw.
Mm-hmm.
My heart is saying a 2-0 Wolves win.
I got to be honest. After the defeat up at Liverpool, the faith, confidence has completely gone in me as well. The heart, I think, I would settle for a point. But I think the head is probably telling me this is Bruno Lage's best chance to get something on the board, to turn this round. And considering the confidence of our players, I think he probably will. I think he probably will. I hope to see a reaction, but how much? We've got a very young side. Adam Smith is the oldest player in the squad. I wouldn't be surprised if Wolves do come down to Dean Court and do get all 3 points on Wednesday. Where do we actually get our next result from? I honestly don't know after that. I honestly don't know, but hopefully it'll be more of the performance against Villa and less of the performance in the last 2. Well, yeah, most definitely up from Liverpool, but yeah, hopefully we can somehow get the performance back from that Villa game, which was very, very good. But then again, like you say, Dave, are Villa that good?
I think they're not brilliant at the moment, but at the same time, you still you got to. I think if someone showed you first 4 games, you would have obviously picked the Villa one out as the most winnable game. So
yeah,
I think if you ignore the manner of the defeats, you're probably where most football fans would probably put you at the moment.
Yeah.
But like we've spoken about, it's the way that you've lost those games at the moment. So I think, like you said earlier, this is probably where Bournemouth will want to be kicking start their season as well on Wednesday.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Dave. It's been an absolute pleasure. And do tell everybody a little bit more about Talking Wolves.
Yeah, so Talking Wolves, we do, it's a channel similar to yourselves. We do, match previews, match reactions after the game. Fans react to it. The fans send us their thoughts after the matches as well. And obviously during this time of year, transfer updates. And we get some ex-players, ex-coaches and stuff on for podcasts every now and then, which is a lot of fun. So, yeah, check us out, Talking Wolves. And if you guys beat us on Wednesday, you want to have a laugh, then jump over. You can see our reaction anyway.
Awesome stuff. And all the description is in the description below. All the links are in the description below, I should say. So please do check the guys out and subscribe to their channel and such like. But thank you so much for joining me, Dave. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, look forward to speaking to you very, very soon.
Thank you for having me on, man. My pleasure. We'll speak soon.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers.
double check that actually. Yes. And thank you everybody for joining me on this opposition preview show. Please do hit the like, the subscribe and the bell button below to be alerted to any new videos we do here at Up the Cherries in all departments. Please do check out all of our previous shows and all of our previous interviews. They're all linked below. Also, we will be having some reaction videos to that. What was it? Yeah, that defeat up in Liverpool. I'm trying to phase it out, but I think we have to approach it head on and discuss what has gone wrong. Well, a lot, let's be fair. But until the next video, up the cherries, and I'll see you then.